Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to another episode of Rethinking Culture, the podcast that shines a spotlight on leaders of businesses that people love to work for. My name is Andreas Constantinou. I'm your host, and I'm also a micromanager turned servant leader who developed a passion for workplace culture. At Rethinking Culture, our passion and ambition is to help 1 million businesses create healthier, more fulfilling cultures at work. And our latest project is a Culture Health Score, which is an online service that lets you build a high-performance culture. Today, I have the pleasure of welcoming Dunia Reverter.
Hello.
Dunia, all the way from Sevilla, Spain. She is the co-founder of Krisos, which is a company that buys and transforms businesses into a force for good. And she's also a guest speaker on new organizational paradigms. She's also a co-founder of jobswithnoboss.com. Self-explanatory. It's a job board where job seekers who value autonomy, responsibility, and collaboration can find other self-managed organizations that share the same value. She tells me she loves reading. She's an addict for change. And she's such an addict to change that she's moved homes countless times and gets itchy if she's in a place for more than 2 years. Fascinating person to meet. Very nice to meet you, Dunia. Very welcome to this episode of Rethinking Culture.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
So, you were telling me how you got, or how you developed an itch for the traditional way of working in hierarchical organizations while you were at GE. And do share the story with us.
Yes. Yeah, I was telling you, I have two lives, the very traditional corporate life, and then the radical transformer sort of life. And when I was at GE, I thought the world was perfect. And who was struggling was because they were not working hard enough. And that GE and my company was wonderful. And it was. I did grow a lot, and I have a lot to thank my experience in GE for. But when I became pregnant, I had quite a high up job, and I saw another side, right? I saw a side that was a bit more ruthless at the time when maybe I cannot be so useful to you for a while. And that was a big disenchantment, because I thought, oof, if it doesn't work in GE, it doesn't work anywhere.
Mhm.
And I guess that big slap I got at that stage started to get me to see something a bit ugly maybe about work and about the way we organize. And that's, I think, when my journey started on the quest for new ways of organizing.
And then you found your purpose while doing yoga and meditation?
Yes. After that, we moved to London, and I decided to become a freelancer, so I would no longer need to be in a hierarchy, embedded in a hierarchy. Although as a freelancer, I was still working for very traditional and hierarchical organizations, like Aviva, Lloyd's Bank. But then I started to do yoga and to meditate, and somehow this portal opened up of new things coming to me, and also new quests, right? And I realized, okay, there's something wrong with the world. What is it? I need to find out. I need to read more. And I started to get books. As you were saying, books changed my life. And the Frederic Laloux, the book on reinventing organizations, definitely changed my mind, like it has a lot of people. Because I discovered that there's a new paradigm that is possible. It's not utopia. There's many companies that already operate like that in a new way. And I discovered that that's going to be my new purpose. It's to help organizations transition to this new way of working.
Yeah, I also find, like we were chatting before hitting the record, that most managers and most employees feel that hierarchical organizations are the only way that exist. Yeah, like you were telling me, this is what we get taught at school. This is the parent-child or teacher-student relationship we're taught at school, and we think there's no other way. But there's actually organizations that where people have almost complete autonomy. There's no managers. There is completely different ways of making decisions and making decisions in a much more egalitarian fashion. Ways that might be considered heretic or radical, but are actually very, very approachable
Yes,
today.
they're actually natural to us. If you think about it, they should be. It's just that we are trained out of them. In the work context, in other contexts like family context, we're okay with it, right? We are independently raise our kids. We don't have a boss telling us how to do it, right? And it's actually a much more complex thing than working in an office or anything like that. But yeah, somehow we are trained to become children at work, and or parents and children at the same time, but it's possible to do it in another way. Of course, there's training, there's learning that needs to happen, and as I was mentioning before, there's also structure that helps when we don't have that much practice. To it helps us, to actually get it working, right? Because it needs to be practiced.
Yeah, and like Lisa Gill says, who introduced us, a self-managed organization doesn't mean an organization without structure. It does have structure. It's just different to the pyramid-like structure that we used to.
It's on the contrary, it has a lot more structure, I would say.
So I definitely want to dive more into that in a little bit. Before that, tell us about your current work with Krisos, which is the company that you use to transform other companies.
Yes. Krisos is an impact fund, and we've set it up so that we would buy companies and transform them so that we can liberate them. And we transform them using very inspired in the methods used by the NER group in Bilbao, in the Basque country. They have a track record of over 100 transformations to this new paradigm, which is very compatible with the Frederic Laloux, what Frederic Laloux describes. And then our idea is to transform them and liberate them to a point that they want to own themselves and turn into a co-op.
And you were telling me that the reason for buying the companies is that you need complete freedom.
Yes.
To change the organization, right?
Yes, we think that some our values, freedom, responsibility, transparency, that's kind of the values that we profess. And when we transform companies, it's kind of what we implement. Everything we do is with radical transparency. Our why do we do this, right? Because we think that the world needs this. That we think that the world needs organizations that are serving us, and that people in their organizations don't feel impotent, but feel actors that are able to steer the organization the right way. So if everyone in the organization is worried about steering the organization in the right way and feels that they have a voice and they can influence it, so long as we know how to do things collaboratively, then organizations start working for us. We were talking before about when we say profit is king, really what we mean is that some abstract entity owns us, right? And we are their their servants. And it shouldn't be like that. Profit should be like oxygen. We need it to breathe, but it's not our reason for being here.
Correct. And an expression I've heard is employees should not be functions of a
or
company's
assets,
pursuit
or
for profit
resources.
or resource. Yeah, and I for one hate the term HR because it implies that we are human, but we're also resources, and we're human, but we're not resources.
Well, we keep the acronym, but we call it human relations instead of human resources.
Right. One thing I liked from our things we were chatting before is You refer to the term domesticating organizations.
Yes.
Tell us more.
Well, is what I was just referring to just now. We need organizations to start working for us, to serve us, and by us I mean the people, societies, the planet. Um, uh, so, so that's kind of the dynamic we need, right? If we are able to do that, we will start to make sense as a species, as a civilization. So this is kind of
So,
the idea.
for those in the room who would like to play devil's advocate, what are the financial results of buying a company and applying these self-management principles? Because you also mentioned that, profit is important. It's the oxygen in the room. So I'm sure there is profit somewhere there.
Yes. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, our investments are and our transformations end up being quite profitable. In the Basque Country, as I was telling you, those 100 plus transformations that were done as a way to turn around the companies that were struggling financially. So we have proven that we improve productivity and we grow when we do these transformations. Just to give you an example, in Indaero, the company that we acquired in Sevilla, that we are transforming now, after 1 year, we have grown sales by 55%. And despite a salary increase in average of 30%, for all employees, and giving net a 25% of bonus based on the net profit. And after that, we have still maintained the same profitability,
Wow.
productivity ratio. So we have grown with the same sort of productivity or profit ratios, and everybody's earning a lot more money.
When you look for companies that would benefit from culture transformation, what do you look for? What kinds of companies?
Everybody asks this, and is that there's people. So if there's humans in the company, this is going to work. But it helps that they're not too small, because then the change is not going to be that significant. That they're not too large, because although you can scale this a way of working, to transform a very large company brings a lot of resistance. So we look for companies between 30 to 150 employees. That's kind of our range. And that's the biggest factor. And we try that they are concentrated in a physical location or in one place, so that, because when we're talking about culture, we kind of need to see each other. So if it's very dispersed geographically, it's harder to do this change. But that's about it. We are quite agnostic on the sector.
And do the employees have to accept the transformation?
Yes. Yes, we have to stick to our values, right? And we talk about freedom, responsibility, transparency. We couldn't force this on people. So once an owner decides that they want to sell, and we have done the due diligence and are comfortable with the company, the last step before actually signing is going there and explaining to all employees what's going to happen, and ask for a vote after Q&As, after giving them resources, videos, etc. And 80% have to say yes, minimum. Otherwise, we won't do it. We need a qualified majority, because it's such a profound transformation that if a vast majority is not on board with this, it's going to be very difficult.
So in Indaero, the company that you are currently transforming,
Yes.
what are some of the comments you're hearing 6 months or 12 months in? Like, what is the wow moments
Yeah.
that people are experiencing?
I mean, we have many, and they come from different places, right? Because it's almost like there's two communities, right? There's the ones that were the parents, the bosses, and the skepticism, and also the dual, the void that they experience at the beginning, because it's quite difficult to let go of power. And then you have a bit of an identity crisis, and how to help them cope with that. And then they're saying they're not going to be able to, they're not going to manage. This is going to go. So that's kind of what they fear. Yeah. Whereas the other community at the beginning, it's like a huge celebration. Yes, this is going to be great. We're going to be free. No more bosses. our salary is probably going to increase. So this is great, right? Then what happens after 6 months is that those people that were once bosses very quickly have learned how to operate in a very autonomous and independent way. So they're already being like, they're just speeding ahead, right? Whereas the other community is learning and they're getting the vertigo and the anxiety of, oh my God, I have to decide on this, but this is a big decision. How do I do this? So they encounter different emotions at different times. Uh, and then, yeah, it's, when you actually, the first time that we actually changed the salary slips and gave them this 30% increase, which for many was way more than 30%, they were almost pinching themselves. They're like, until they didn't see it in the salary check, they couldn't believe it. It's like, oh, it's true, it's happening, And then we continue to operate, and we continue to do well, and we started to grow. So then the others are saying, oh wow, nothing is breaking. This is actually happening, but I'd say there's not one thing that you say, oh my God, we got this, we won this. It's all sorts of little bits and pieces that everybody's contributing. It's the beauty of distributed leadership. It's everybody's putting their own grain to the pot. And you cannot say, oh yeah, we grew because this superhero did this for us. No, there's no superheroes. Everybody is helping and supporting this. So you don't know how or where it's coming from, but all of a sudden things just start kind of working in the right way, in the right direction, and going up.
For people who are not familiar with self-organizing teams and principles, like, can you walk us through how such a team or an organization would work? Like, what's a
Yeah.
day in the life
Yeah.
of a team? How are decisions taken? Who's the boss?
Yeah.
And so
So we
on.
don't have bosses, right? So there's this healthy tension that a boss brings. We eliminate the power over others that a boss has, but we need leadership, and we need healthy tensions, and we need commitment. Yeah. So how do we make sure that we have commitment, right? So what we do is we have a triangle, let's say, of decision making. There's the kind of like the steering group that looks at goals, objectives, budgets, investments. How are we doing with financials every month? So it's kind of like a monthly meeting, a steering meeting, and every team sends representatives to that forum. So there's reps that are responsible for attending the steering meetings. There's normally, now we are getting into a rhythm of 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, the relations or culture forum. And that's where we deal with all the fun aspects of the culture, the relations, the conflicts. How are we going to do salary calibration? So they're the most controversial meetings. And here's where we have to be very careful, because we are helping them make decisions that are coherent with the new values and with the new paradigm. But they are not used to doing this, right? So there is where our intervention is most important, because we cannot deal with a setback of something we didn't like by putting control over people. That's, that goes against our values. We do not control people, we trust people. So that's where we have those conversations, and we touch all those social, laboral kind of aspects of the organization. And then we have the planning and commitment meetings that happen more periodically. They could be, in our case now for this company I'm telling you about in Sevilla, is weekly. Normally for an industrial business, it would be weekly, but there could be moments where you need to have it daily, for example. And there we talk about meeting commitments to the customer and to the budget, and in terms of quality, right? So getting work done, on how to deal with all the changes of plan that we deal on a, everyday basis.
So, if you were to impart some of your wisdom to a listener who's like an HR person or or a middle manager in an organization, you told me earlier your advice would be not to start a revolution, but
Yeah.
what's a small step they can start with?
Yeah, we do radical transformations, right? And in order to do that, you need to have a very strong buy-in from everywhere. So I've seen middle managers, people that are passionate about this way of working, trying to implement it in the midst of their own organization, a large organization, and that could be dangerous because it's not understood by the rest, and it can even be seen as a threat. So I wouldn't recommend to start that way, but you can hack culture to make it more participative uh, within your own organization. If you're kind of a middle manager or HR manager, the way I suggest to do it is in the meeting rooms, because in the meeting rooms is where we exchange and where culture happens. So to do it in a more participative way, uh, and for that, I strongly recommend to look at Liberating Structures. It's open source, liberatingstructures.com. They have 33 patterns or structures, almost like recipes, or how to conduct a meeting or a part of a meeting based on whatever outcome you want. To the even like questions, asking questions, you can do it in a way that is more participative, and you get a lot more engagement than just like going to a large audience and just who has a question. Only some extroverts might raise their hand, and most people are quiet. If you use liberating structures, you're able to engage everybody in that conversation and in those questions, and the most important questions emerge. So yeah, I would suggest to use participative techniques, check-ins and check-outs, just having those reflective rounds on how are we arriving into this meeting and what we want to get out of it, how are we leaving, how the meeting went. Just those two elements change completely the meeting. And if you're a boss and you're running a meeting, even if you don't use any of these structures, just state your opinion last. Make sure everybody has stated their opinion before yours, because it's so beautiful when you do that and you see new ideas emerge that nobody else thought about before. Yeah. And when you're actually taking the time to listen to what everybody else has to say, just amazing ideas emerge. The collective wisdom appears.
I learned this many years ago, Dunia, because I found that I was speaking first, and then I was realizing that my idea was fairly dumb. So I was clearly not the smartest person in the room. So I decided I'm going to let everyone else speak first. And then if my idea still has merit and no one has trashed it beforehand, I am going to speak at the very end. And it has so many benefits.
Yes.
And I've also found the power of questions, because especially in an environment where you don't want to create any form of tension by, implying or asking or telling, asking people what to do or telling them what to do, I think questions is the most powerful way.
Yeah.
Because even if you're wrong, the worst thing you've done is just shown curiosity, and you kind of give the power to the other person to express themselves. And I usually find that I'm completely refreshing my perspective and become much more richer as a person if I sit back and listen to what the other person has to say without assuming that I know how they're going to respond.
Yeah. That's been one of my biggest development needs. I am such a solutionizer of everything, like always thinking of what the solution is, right? So I just jump to it, right? And as managers, as traditional managers, another tip for somebody who's in an organization like this is stop bringing solutions to the table. We're so trained that we have to bring a solution. If we're not bringing the solution, we're not a good manager. It's not true. Just ask your team, what do you think is the solution? Ask them. You might know already. Like if nobody has an idea, you know what you do. But just and like see what they come up with. And I love the integration. So one of the things that we do decisions by consent. We use the consent decision making. I don't know if you've heard of this pattern. It's a sociocracy pattern, and it's called integrative decision making, because it integrates it integrates objections into your solution. So an objection is basically a way of seeing something that brings too much risk to this solution. If we find a way to reduce that risk or make it safe enough, by changing a little bit our proposal, we have a more robust, but we're integrating. We're no longer doing this like black and white, winners, losers. We're not doing either or. We're doing both and more. And it's
So how does consent-based decision making work? In simple, in just a few words.
Yeah, so let's just think that there's a proposal out there. Somebody puts forward a proposal. And then what we need to do is, before judging, we suspend judgment and we do a round of clarification, because many times the problems and the conversations get all muddied and we just haven't understood well the proposal. So before reacting, we differentiate in clarification. So we ask everyone to ask clarification questions. And the fact that there's going to be round and everybody's going to have a chance to ask them gets everybody comfortable. Egos are calm. Once we've clarified, we might no longer react the way we were going to, but then we have a round of reactions. And there, after all the reactions, it's not ping pong, so people react. And then with all those reactions, the proposer has now to make a decision. Do I integrate already from these reactions? Can I, if somebody's telling me I think it's going to be too risky to do it for all this portfolio, I say, oh no, well, let's then change the scope and I keep my proposal, but I reduce the scope or things like that. So do I have a chance already to integrate? Because some of those reactions make sense to me. Do I want to recall my proposal and work it a bit more because what I heard gave me all these ideas and I want to work on it more? Or do I keep it as it is? And then, okay, once we have a proposal on the table, after listening to all those reactions, the proposal says, okay, this is what it is. Then we object or we give the thumbs up. So a thumb up is, I'm okay with it, go ahead. We can say like this, and this means, I have some fears or suggestions, concerns, but you can go ahead. I just want you to hear my concerns and take them into account. You're free to go ahead. And we object and we do this sign because it's a gift. Because we are so stigmatized by saying, no, I'm blocking, but you're not blocking. You're actually offering a view that maybe others are not seeing, that is making this not safe enough or not good enough. Yeah. And then I'm going to put that objection on the table, and at least somebody else needs to agree that it's a valid objection. It's not just my thing, but yes, this is actually a big risk. And then we have to all work with you to figure out what would make this proposal safe enough or good enough. And we continue, and we do this round until. So it might take us a bit longer than if we have an authoritarian boss that just says, this is what we're doing, period. Or, okay, what do you have to say? Okay, boom, this is what we're doing. It takes us a bit longer, but then the solutions, the proposals that we come up with are a lot more robust. And they have the buy-in from everybody.
And so this is something a leader in an organization can apply. What about if a CEO is listening and is curious about what she can do to introduce these principles in the organization?
So if you're an owner or a CEO and you have enough authority, like you're holding a whole space, so then I would invite you to be radical and do the sort of transformations that we do. Although I would suggest that you don't do it on your own. Because the first thing, the organizations are our mirror, right? So we need to discover, about our leadership style. How do we need to change from within so that this change can happen. Yeah. So it's hard to do that on your own. So find consultants, facilitators who are eager to work with you and help you with this transformation. We organize some field trips, excursions, or experiences, where CEOs can come to the Basque Country, so you can come and visit us and see how other CEOs operate and how these companies work. If you need to make up your mind, and then try to experiment it with your own organization. It's a lot different, right? There you can be as radical as you have an appetite for. Yeah.
Right.
However, don't do it alone, please.
Right. You were telling me earlier that you really enjoy resolving conflict. And how do you approach conflict at work?
Yeah. I was also saying, of course, when conflict touches us directly, it's better that somebody helps us mediate if we're not finding it the way to do it. But one of the things that happen when we are doing these transformations is conflict pops up. And conflict is an opportunity of growth, of development. We make huge advancements. And it could also be a cause for regression if we don't know how to deal with it, right? So knowing how to deal with conflict and how to help colleagues resolve their conflicts is huge. And also, there's a dynamic that changes because when we have hierarchical organization, we give the conflict to our bosses and we ask them to take care of it. Yeah, for us. When we're in a self-management organization, we need to own our conflicts. This is like the major paradigm shift that actually this is my conflict and I need to be proactive about how I'm going to resolve it. Yeah. And I cannot be shy of it. So, so, so as I'm holding the space and I'm seeing these conflicts, these dramas, I'm always asking, what is the drama of the week? Because this is kind of the places where we're going to grow. It's like, where do we need to, apply a bit of like magic? Yeah. And then the way we do it is by active listening. Again, I use a liberating structure called Conversation Cafe. Works wonders for me. Give a talking object, and we do rounds where the person who's speaking is speaking, and nobody else can interrupt. And we hear how the different people are living their conflict. And it's amazing how much progress we make with just such a simple technique. Courses on emotional intelligence, I think, are also foundational. So we do emotional intelligence for all employees because there's so much conflict that can be resolved when I have more
Absolutely.
self-awareness, right?
Absolutely. And because if you share emotions with someone, if you practice empathy, and if you, for example, share vulnerability, immediately you connect emotionally with the other person. And that makes half the conflict go away.
Yeah.
You mentioned about you were fed up helping organizations improve a little, but not fundamentally change.
Yes.
How much are you able to change organizations now?
Oh, now you were also asking me what what would be my dream job or something like that. It's like what I'm doing now. I feel it's what it is because now I feel that the sort of change that we're doing is is forever. Like the whole view on what we're doing is so that it's sustainable, right? And there's not going to be a naughty boy that is going to come behind my back and step on the sandcastle that I just built, right? Which is kind of like the feeling I had from before, that no matter how much work you do with a team, then, a boss comes and just kind of destroys everything that you've been trying to build with them, right? So, yeah, this is wonderful now that we're able to do it in this way.
I was reading about seagull leadership the other day, which is the concept of a seagull flying over, the supervisor flying over, checking in on the employee, dropping some shit over. This is what you have to do it completely differently, and then flying out.
Yeah.
So this is, I think,
Yeah.
There's a lot of malaise, there's a lot of problems that we're very well and painfully aware of.
Yeah.
But now we have a dictionary and a way of solving them in a way that predictably works is
Yeah.
what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Dunia, what would you encourage leaders to rethink when it comes to culture and how they run their organizations?
Yeah. Um, well, what we said about it starts with you. So if you think your team or your organization are not working well, are not doing things, are not to be trusted, are not ready for this, there's something in you here that is all of that, right? So what in you needs to change? so so the space appears, right, for the rest of the team to rise. Yeah. So work on yourself. um, Work with people that can help you see. We were talking before about blind spots, your blind spots, the
Mhm.
good ones and the bad
Mm.
ones, because we were talking how many times we have these strengths that are amazing, and people take for granted that we know about it, but we don't. Yeah. So
Right.
so self discovery, and then those, all those techniques that we talk about, just kind of be hungry for the collective intelligence to arise. So be happy when you join a meeting and the outcome from it is different from what you envisaged it was going to be. You know, like, go with the curiosity of seeing what the solution will be, as opposed to how am I going to convince everybody that my solution is the one. Go into the meeting thinking, i wonder I wonder what's going to come out of this one. So if you don't get too attached to your solutions, that's when the magic happens.
And where do we start? Where does someone start becoming more self aware about either themselves or the organization? Like,
Yeah.
what baby steps can someone take?
Hmm.
To
Well,
put it otherwise, what would you recommend we read or watch?
yeah, okay. So books, I mean, I have a lot of books. Obviously, Reinventing Organizations is a must read. I really like Brave New Work from
Hmm.
Aaron Dignam. It also gives really
Hmm.
nice ideas on that. I like Moose Heads on the Table by Lisa
Hmm.
Gill and Karen Tenelius. And they are also
Hmm.
practitioners of tough leadership. And that's they train managers on how to have adult to adult conversations as opposed to be directive in their approach.
Hmm.
So if you want to
Hmm.
retrain your style or your way of being as a leader, that's a great course to
Mm,
do.
mm,
All
mm,
sorts of facilitation, coaching courses
mhm,
are great, highly
mhm,
encouraged, because they will
mhm,
also help you explore those new aspects of leadership that we need in order to be more participative leaders. And we talked about emotional intelligence, again, foundational, I think, for
mhm.
anybody, anyone. So, yeah, well, there's sociocracy. The S3 patterns are also very useful. We talked about consent decision making. So I mean, that's my own little recipe, right? Or cocktail of trainings
Mhm,
that I
mhm,
have been taking that have been
mhm,
helping me through the years. But there's many
mhm.
out there,
And where can people find out more about you, Dunia?
Krisos.eu,
Very good.
LinkedIn, Dunia.Reverter.
Very good. Dunia, thank you for sharing your energy with us
Thank you.
and for inspiring us a little bit to challenge what we have been taught with top-down organizations, with lack of autonomy and lack of self-determination, and for showing us there's a better way, and for actually daring to prove that there is a better way, because you're not just out there having a discussion, but you're actually sleeves up and doing the work of transforming the organization you've acquired and moving to acquire a second one.
Well, thank you for giving this to everyone who's listening to you, so that it catches on.
So I'm hoping that if you're listening to this, you have been inspired to challenge even slightly the habits and the structure and the way of working of the organization you work for. If you enjoyed listening to the podcast as much as I enjoyed listening to Dunia here, please leave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends about it, because that's how more people find out about the podcast. And if you like to learn more about building a high-performance organization, you can always visit rethinkculture.co. Do email me. I'd love to hear about your favorite episode or a favorite guest you'd like to bring on board. Email me at andreas@rethinkculture.co. And keep leading and keep creating healthier, happier organizations for you and especially for those around you.